Once again, I'm Peter Hollenbeck, your Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs. And part of my job is to ride herd on, promote, stimulate the whole faculty career trajectory at Purdue. For instance, my first interaction, so to speak, with all of you was the approval of the hiring plan last year that resulted in the searches that brought you to Purdue. What I want to talk about over the next 40 minutes or so is this career arc at Purdue, and in particular, how you all are going to approach promotion, and in the case of tenure track faculty, tenure, how that works at Purdue, and sorts of general advice and knowledge one wants to have. So I'll go to some slides now. First, let's just say a word about what the faculty profile looks like at Purdue. How do we break out? The provost mentioned earlier that Purdue has an extremely high percentage of tenured or tenure track faculty, amongst the three highest in the country, just because of the history of the policies we've had that have created and governed faculty employment. So where we sit these days, the numbers I'll give are mostly from a census that happened last fall. We haven't come up on our annual census for this fall. So we have in the ballpark of 1,900 to 2,000 tenured and tenure track faculty. We've got well over 200 clinical professional faculty, a modest number, right now 31 research faculty. We have just under 100 visiting temporary faculty. This is a mechanism at Purdue that is often, in certain disciplines, a bridge between PhD or postdoctoral years and a full-time faculty position somewhere. Then you see a category, adjunct faculty. This doesn't mean at Purdue what it means many other places. This is a category that represents people who have relationships with units at Purdue and have gotten adjunct status, but they are not actually paid employees of the university. Okay, so for the ranks, how do things break out? Here is how the ranks break out for tenure track faculty. And it's pretty typical of the steady state for many institutions. We've got about 50% of the professoriate in the full professor rank, and the rest are split about 50-50. So about 1/4 assistant professors and 1/4 associate professors. The clinical professional ranks break out a little differently. That's a younger category at Purdue. I don't have those numbers with me today. All right, so promotion, and in the case of tenure track faculty, tenure. What's the deal? It turns out, and this might be no surprise, that a very strong predictor of satisfaction and success is understanding the process you're about to go through. And I'd like to launch that understanding today while recognizing you'll learn and hear a lot more about it over the next couple of years. So, Purdue's policy, procedures, and criteria. I'll circle back in a minute to these three separate documents. But the important point to start off with is one that has been alluded to already today, and that is that about 5 years ago, a faculty task force was assembled to look very critically at our existing promotion policies to clarify and refine them. I would argue that that was a very successful process. And where we sit now is these three documents: our promotion and tenure policy, our procedures and our criteria are hard and fast. They're up on the university website. They're accessible to all. We don't like secret handshakes at Purdue, and there is nothing secret handshakey about this process. Now, in addition to these standing documents that define how we do things, there's also an annual letter, which I will resist calling Promotion for Dummies, that comes from the provost, called the Provost Memo, which is a condensed form of the rules that the various committees have to follow, as well as often some special advice that may be new or particularly important in that year. So what we have is three documents. You'll hear a lot of things referred to as policy at Purdue, but there's really only one thing that's really policy, capital P at Purdue, and that is university-wide rules that have been made or modified through a very rigorous university process that includes input from stakeholders, approval at various levels, and finally approval by a university-wide policy committee. Policies typically define what we do in a particular area. So in the area of promotion or promotion and tenure, it defines what we do in this process, why we do it, and very importantly, a long list of who is responsible for doing what. There's a separate document at Purdue. We call it Procedures. This is the nuts and bolts of how that process is carried out. Policy is very difficult to change. It takes a lot of input and a lot of work. Procedures that support a policy, like promotion and tenure, are owned by a particular part of the university that has to administer the policy and are a little bit easier to modify over time. In the case of promotion and tenure, the procedures belong to the provost's office. And then finally, special to the promotion process is criteria. It's one thing to define what we do, why, and who is responsible. It's another thing to talk about the nuts and bolts of how it works. But in the case of promotion, you need to know what the ladder is, what the yardsticks are. What is the bar one has to get over to be promoted from assistant professor to an associate professor with tenure, or from an associate clinical professional faculty member to a full clinical professor. And there's additional guidance on this in that annual provost memo. So let's say a few words about criteria. We have very generalized university criteria that define what the bar is for various promotions. And as you can imagine, university-wide criteria have to be very general because what you're looking for promotion is quite different in different areas and different disciplines. So the university criteria, which you can find on our website, really talk about general terms like impact, national, international excellence, and so on. Because the university criteria for what constitutes cause for promotion have to be very general, your colleges and in many cases your school or department have their own criteria, which they have actually written down that are specific to that area. These are going to differ amongst units and maybe even amongst subdisciplines within a department. It's obvious that someone in mechanical engineering and a faculty member in design and performance are going to have different kinds of production that indicate their impact and their excellence. But even within a discipline, I myself am a member of the faculty in biological sciences. We're a soup to nuts department. We range from people who study a single viral protein at angstrom resolution to people who follow birds around in the rainforest. And so even within my department, the different subdisciplines are going to have slightly different criteria. What constitutes a publishable unit may be different for that virologist versus the ecologist. What constitutes adequately impactful external funding may be different, and so on. These should be written down and available to you, like everyone else, at your college level and perhaps within your school or department. Now, in all cases, by university guidelines, when we're considering faculty for promotion, we are supposed to be looking holistically at impact. What's your impact in the scholarly research and discovery sphere? What's your impact in teaching? What's your impact in engagement? Rather than weighing your CV, okay? Very simple quantitative bean counting is not supposed to be the guide to our promotion process. All right, so to quote directly from the university document, to be considered for promotion, a faculty member should have demonstrated excellence and scholarly productivity in at least one of these three areas, and ordinarily strength should be manifest in more than one of these areas. So this is the document that applies to tenure track faculty. I'll circle back around in a moment to clinical and professional faculty. So the traditional three legs to the stool for tenure track faculty are discovery, which you might call research, learning, which you might call teaching, and engagement. You've just heard about engagement, and that is how we take what we learn, what we develop at a research university, and turn outward and take it out into the world, whether that's your own department, the community, your profession, the state, the world, so on. So these are the three areas in which one can be assessed in their impact for promotion. Now, it's a little different for clinical and professional faculty, and this is a quote directly from the document that created clinical and professional faculty in their current form at Purdue, and which governs their conditions of employment. Clinical professional faculty focus principally on excellence in instruction and engagement. So you could think of it as two legs to the stool. These are the two areas in which we anticipate assessing impact for promotion of clinical and professional faculty. However, clinical professional faculty at Purdue are a very diverse group. And if you look at the rest of this quote, you can see, in addition to their instructional responsibilities on campus, what other things might they do? Professionals in a practice site, clinical supervisors of students, collaboration with industry and government, supervision of internships, co-ops, and service learning. And so the bottom line at Purdue is that different units deploy the abilities of CP faculty in very different ways. And so those units must have promotion criteria that reflect those specifics. Just as an example, you can envision a clinical professor who's really clinical. In other words, someone who operates on large animals in the vet school and trains residents and students in that area. There are also people in this category of clinical professional faculty who we call professors of practice, who might be people with enormous expertise from years in industry who come back late in their career to the university to do things like capstone project teaching and experiential learning. So CP faculty deployed in very different ways. It's very important to you, if you are a clinical faculty member, to have very clear from your department head, perhaps your college, what it is they're looking to you to do, and to be very clear that they're ready to recognize the kinds of impacts that you have. All right, it was mentioned earlier, I believe, by the president, that a recent addition to the criteria for tenure amongst tenure track faculty is student mentoring. This all arose out of some analysis in a large-scale survey of our alumni that indicated, maybe no surprise, that one of the most important things, one of the most important predictors of student satisfaction and success as they looked back was intensive one-on-one interactions with our faculty and staff. Things like working in labs, experiential learning, and so on. So we're talking about faculty mentoring of students. And the actual language that was inserted into our campus criteria are commitment to active and responsive mentorship, as well as an active role in mentoring, advising, and supporting the academic success of students and postdoctoral scientists, will also be documented as part of the process that defines tenure and promotion. So this is something that needs to be included in everyone's promotion dossier. Now, you may be thinking, if you've already had some exposure as a grad student or a postdoc to mentoring people in a research group or in the course of doing teaching, that this involves a whole range of skills and opportunities. So our teaching activity tends to shade into mentoring. You get involved with students you teach, you guide them, you might write letters of recommendation for them. Obviously, our research activity shades into mentoring. You have students in your research or scholarship group. In my case, I had many, many students pass through my lab, and that becomes a mentoring relationship as you guide them toward the future, write recommendation letters for them, and do other things for their career progress and development. And engagement shades into mentoring. So essentially, all the areas of faculty activity can easily be seen to impact students and trainees in ways that constitute mentoring. You want to keep track of these. You want to record them. You want to ensure that they're in your promotion document. And so they're the sorts of things that one ought to keep in your long-form CV and keep your department apprised of as time goes by. All right, the time to tenure. This again for tenure track faculty. Clinical professional faculty don't have a probationary period. Tenure track faculty do, so it's an up or out arrangement. Assistant professors usually have a probationary period of 7 years in which to earn promotion and tenure. The 6th year, second to last or penultimate year, is the year in which these faculty are assessed, in which they go through the review and promotion process. Entering associate professors who are occasionally hired without tenure usually have a 4-year probationary period, so they're evaluated through the committee process in the 3rd year. Let's think about that now. On the way to that penultimate year, you'll all have a series of contract renewals. And for better or worse, like a lot of things at Purdue, this arrangement varies by college. So I have a few examples here. Incoming assistant professors typically have an initial 4-year contract, followed by a 2-year contract, followed by a 1-year contract if they're in engineering. in management or pharmacy. In my own college, science, and in agriculture, it's a 3-year contract followed by 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, 1 year, and so on. The point is these are renewals in the run-up to evaluation for promotion. The pattern of these should have been specified in your contract, your offer letter, and you and your unit head should take these seriously. These rollovers are opportunities to go beyond the typical annual review and talk more deeply about how things are going and what you need to succeed. Extensions of the tenure clock. This 7-year probationary period is standard, but it's not hard and fast. There are times when specific conditions or individual personal circumstances interfere with smooth progress toward promotion. A special case is Purdue offers a 1-year, what we call an automatic approval of adding a year to the tenure clock for the birth or adoption of a child. This had an interesting genesis. A number of years ago, it occurred to someone that society requires birth and that people's working life ought to accommodate it. The way that faculty get a 1-year tenure clock extension for childbirth is called automatic because you fill out a form requesting it and your head doesn't have to approve it and your dean doesn't have to approve it. It comes directly to me as Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs and I say yes, and this applies to either or both parents. There are extensions approved for other reasons, personal circumstances like severe illness or disability. A very common one, it's not very common, but one of the ones I've seen from time to time in my college, which is STEM intensive, is delays in the availability of lab space. So if someone's has come here and they're going to launch their program in physics and their lab was supposed to be ready and it's not ready till 6 months after they get here, and it'd be great if that never happened, but it does occasionally. It would be typical for them to go to their head and say, look, I need a year extension because I've been set back. Their head would approve it, goes to the dean approves it, and then it comes to us. So that's not automatic, but it's clearly justified. COVID-19 headwinds. Many of you are aware that when the pandemic struck last spring and we all went home, one of the things that we did for our existing pre-tenure tenure track faculty was to offer them an automatic extension, like the childbirth extension, but based on the COVID pandemic. So if they felt that the events of the pandemic were going to hinder their progress, and heaven knows it hindered many people's progress, they simply filled out the form, sent it to me, and I approved it. And about 60% of the eligible faculty took advantage of that. The time window for them is closed, but for you as new faculty, that time window to request that automatic tenure clock extension spans this academic year. You should all have gotten a memo about that, but contact me if you have not. All right, how does the promotion process work? Nuts and bolts. Your promotion dossier is prepared typically in the run-up to your penultimate academic year. In the summer prior to that, typically your department's primary committee or a subcommittee focused on you will put that document together. It has a generally standard university format, and very importantly, with your collaboration, they will solicit outside letters. So referees, specialists in your field, typically esteemed people in your field who can attest to your impact and your suitability for promotion. In the fall of the penultimate year, this primary or department school level promotions committee meets and votes on your case. Cases that are successful at the department or school level then move up to what we call the area promotions committee. This is at the college level. And this committee votes on your case sort of late fall, early winter, not long after the primary promotions committee. And then successful cases at that level move on to the campus promotions committee, which in the case of tenure track faculty is referred to for historical reasons as panel A. So the primary promotions committee composition is typically all the tenured faculty, or in the case of promotions to full, all the full professors in a given department. It's chaired by the department head, who is a non-voting member. The area promotions committee is the department heads of each of the departments in a college, along with a number of faculty, full professors, elected or appointed to that committee that typically outnumbers by one the number of administrators. Then the campus promotions committee, who is around the table, it's all of the deans, plus, again, a set of full professors from around campus who outnumber the deans. So panel A is for tenure track faculty. For promotion for clinical professional faculty, they have a distinct path, you could call it, but a very similar process. There isn't a clock by which clinical and professional faculty must be considered. They have no probationary period. They can be put forward at any point when their unit feels that they're ready, suitable for promotion. They also go through a primary or department level committee, an area or college level committee, and then a university committee. But at each level, those committees have an enhanced, the impact of clinical faculty opinion is enhanced by pulling extra clinical faculty onto those committees if necessary. And panel B at the university level incorporates more clinical faculty than panel A would. The procedures for appointing and promoting clinical faculty, again, up on the web on our university policy website, and also linked from the promotion and tenure part of our Provost office website. Faculty development, worth just saying a word here. It is fair to say that up until recent years, there was more faculty development activity available for tenure track faculty than for clinical faculty. That is an issue we've been working on for a while, and so if you are in the clinical professional category and looking for faculty development, please stay in touch with my office and mind your email for announcements of the things that we'll be doing. Research faculty. Research faculty they are a category that's focused at Purdue, by their definition at Purdue, almost exclusively on research activity. They are typically, virtually always, funded by outside grants, by outside support. At this point, it's a fairly small cadre of 30-odd, as I showed in a slide earlier, but it could well grow as specific parts of our research enterprise grow. Research faculty, like clinical and professional faculty, don't have a probationary period, although we're in the process right now of revising the policy and procedures for research faculty in order to ensure that they do at least get reviewed regularly and that they will be considered seriously for promotion. Should they be put forward for promotion, they would again go through a primary committee, an area committee, and onto the university. For research faculty, we refer to the campus promotions panel as panel C, and analogous to the panel B for clinical professional faculty, panel C for research faculty is enriched for existing research faculty. And again, the specific university procedures for appointing and promoting research faculty up on the policy website for all to see, and also linked to the promotion section of the Provost office. So a word about how this has gone recently. These are the data from last year. So this is the round of promotion review that resulted in people assuming new rank last week, actually. So the round that went on during the 2019-20 academic year. On the tenure track, 131 faculty were reviewed for promotion across all units last year. And 120 were ultimately approved. So this was a great year. It was a 92% success rate for promotion. You can see on these second two lines, 53 out of 54 were successfully promoted to full, that is from associate to full, and 67 out of 68 were successfully promoted to associate professor. So 9 nominations in total did not get to the campus promotions committee. 1 failed at area and 8 at the primary committee level. 14 clinical faculty were promoted. That was a 100% success rate last year. And 1 research faculty member was promoted, so 1 for 1, or 100%. You heard a bit about engagement and how the number of people seeking promotion based all or in part on their engagement activity has gone up. So I think it's worth having a look at the areas of focus. As Steve Abel mentioned, on the promotion document, at least at this point in history, one checks 1, 2, or 3 of those boxes for promotion on the tenure track. That is teaching and learning, research/discovery or engagement. And here you can see on the upper left there, you can see the vast majority of promotions to associate and full were based on discovery, but there were 3 based on engagement for promotion to full, and 4 based on learning for promotion to associate. In the bottom part of the table, you see split considerations. So there were a couple of promotions based on both discovery and engagement together, a couple based on discovery and learning together, 1 based on learning and engagement together. So the bases on which people go up for promotion on the tenure track have become a little more complex than they used to be and a little more mixed across these areas. All right, so they tell me everyone wants to know what the keys to faculty success and well-being are, particularly in the context of promotion. And so, as someone who's been here a while, here's what I think. You just got here, so why should you be thinking about your promotion that's years down the road, whether you're on the tenure track or whether you're a clinical professional faculty member? You do want to start early. You do want to find out what's going on. You do want people in your unit to make very clear to you what the road looks like. So get oriented to the situation here. Ask and talk to people and interact and find out what it means to be in your department, what it means to be in your college, what are they expecting of you, and what do you need from them. Let's make those things crystal clear as early as you can. Understand the process, the promotion process for clinical professional faculty, the promotion and tenure process for tenure track faculty. This is the start. You can look at this presentation or look at these slides on the web, but there are lots of opportunities in your unit, in your college, and campus-wide to learn more, understand more about the promotion process, and be sure that you understand the expectations and that you've got yourself on track. Begin and plan with the goal in mind. There's a lot of things you could do around here. And so figure out what your goals are and start building toward them. You've got, for folks on the tenure track, about 5 years to really show what you're capable of and to have some impact. And so you want to plan for that well. Start with research and teaching, or if you're clinical professional faculty, engagement in teaching, and don't lose your focus. Again, there's a lot of things you could be involved with. Even Steve Abel, who's our biggest enthusiast about engagement, suggested to you, if you're on the tenure track, wait a couple years to think about engagement. Most of the focus is going to be on your research and your teaching. Get those organized, get those on track. You came here because you showed excellence in your PhD or your PhD and postdoc. And you're going to continue to seek excellence within your discipline. Think a lot about what that means. Think about what impactful work in your discipline is. Think about how to get to obvious outcomes that demonstrate your excellence. Engagement, which you heard all about, and service, which really involves helping to run this place. They're going to increase over your career. I wouldn't be too anxious to take these on at this point. There's plenty of time for that. And then something you'll probably get tired of hearing about if you haven't already, create work-life balance. We're all telling you this in a lot of different ways, but we tell you this because it's true. We have an almost obsessive work culture, I would argue, in the United States, and academia is not immune to that. You can't work all the time, and you can't think about work all the time. And in fact, working all the time and thinking about work all the time are not the optimal way to get to success and impact. So everyone needs to find what the sustainable rhythm of their life is. And I think for an academic, when you walk into your first faculty position, you are walking into the rest of your life. And it's a good time for you to think about, what do I want out of life at work and away from work? How do I need to run that? So that I have a rich, fulfilling life, and so that I'm successful both on this campus and off of it. In doing that, be very aware of the supports that are available for you and ask for help and advice. How to be aware of these things. You should be assigned someone in a mentor's role in your department. If someone isn't assigned, for heaven's sake, go to your head and get a mentor assigned to you, and then work them. Find other people to get advice from. They may be in your department. They may be elsewhere on campus. They may be in the office of your department head. They may be in the office of your dean. It might be me or Lisa Maurer in the Office of Faculty Affairs. Find help and advice, find support, find people who can help you locate opportunities, find people who can help you solve problems. They exist. So identify them as soon as you can. And then we really want you to be here. We feel lucky to have hired you because you're very, very good at what you do. And we want you to succeed. Purdue isn't the place that hires 100 faculty and plans to tenure 10 of them. As you saw, we'd like to promote all of you when the time comes. So ask for what you need. And for tenure track faculty who've got their probationary period, if what you need is a clock extension, ask for it. In some cases, all you have to do is ask me for childbirth or the COVID extension, and I always say yes. If you need parental leave, ask for it. These things have been made available not because some people just aren't up to it, but because all people need help with these things in order to be successful. All right, so at this point, I'll take questions, and they're rolling into me in text format. So I'll start with this one. Question: does the 1-year extension for COVID or childbirth apply only to the probationary period, or do these circumstances also extend the initial contract renewal period? These are intended, COVID and childbirth, as automatic issues. Those are extensions of the tenure clock. An issue of extending the initial contract renewal, that's certainly something I think one could discuss with one's department head or dean's office, or come and discuss with us. But it wasn't the design intention of the extension. Another question: what mentoring programs are available outside my department? That's an excellent question. One of the things that's available is the Faculty Access Success and Tenure, or FAST program, F-A-S-T. You can search the Purdue website for FAST program. That is a program of regular seminars. They'll be virtual this year, but regular seminars that provide lots of advice and insight into how to make things work around here, and also rub you up against leaders or just experienced people from around campus who you may remain connected with and get help or advice from. A related question: I heard mentoring was part of the promotion process. Actually, let me circle back to this what mentoring programs are available. There's a lot of advice and guidance available. I mentioned the FAST program, but there are so many things going on that we've recently had meetings to try to be sure we understand what they all are. So you could certainly ask about mentoring in your department or the office of the dean of your college, or you could come to us. There's some mentoring available through the Butler Center. There's mentoring available from a variety of sources, and please ask someone who knows the campus about that if you're not finding what you want. Here's a question: I heard mentoring was part of the promotion process. What are the guidelines for that? Let me back up. Because there was a lot of discussion about including mentoring in our promotion and tenure criteria, and in the end, we ended up with this single sentence in the criteria. It's not in the policy, it's not in the procedures, it's this sentence in the criteria. So it simply says, faculty need to demonstrate that they've done mentoring of students and trainees, and it has to be documented in the promotion dossier. That's the extent of it. And so it's being put into those dossiers a little differently in different units, but it has to be there. I don't view this as a big reach, because I can't imagine any of my faculty activity over the last 30 years that did not shade into mentoring. Okay, I'll just wait a moment and see if additional questions roll in. Where can we get the slides that were presented today? I assume we'll be able to have all of these presentations available on the very website that you went to, the new faculty orientation website. If not, then go to the Faculty Affairs website, the Provost Office Faculty Affairs website, and you can find all this. We certainly, we're not trying to hide it. We'd like everyone to have access to this information as a jumping off point. Look also, excuse me, at the information that came in the bags or packets that were delivered to your offices. There's a lot of things we might normally discuss or at least put in front of you at the in-person new faculty orientation that we didn't today. Just one example, I amassed a long list over my years in this office that's just called Who You Gonna Call? Who are you gonna call if you're concerned about a student? Who are you gonna call if you're concerned about a colleague? Who are you gonna call if someone breaks their leg? So look for that Who You Gonna Call list. Can you explain the sabbatical and leave rules? I'm not sure. We have a rather complicated leaves and sabbaticals policy, but which we're looking to revise and clarify. Sabbaticals are available to tenure track faculty on an earned basis, so after a particular number of semesters. So I believe it's after 12 semesters, you earn a semester at full pay or a year at half pay. That's pretty straightforward, although the things that people do can get a little complicated. There's also a variety of possible research leaves. There are, in fact, leaves available for clinical professional faculty. The policy on CP faculty doesn't have sabbaticals as a privilege, but it recognizes that CP faculty do need to do things to expand and grow. A clinical faculty member in the vet school may need to go away to do work to get licensure renewal. So there are leaves that can be organized for that. We sometimes have faculty who want to combine research leave and sabbaticals in creative ways, and that's an ongoing project for us. But yes, I would say one of the major issues we have with sabbaticals is that not enough of the sabbaticals the faculty earn actually get taken. I'm a good example. I haven't taken all the ones I've earned. People are worried about leaving their research group behind. They find it hard to move their whole family to a different place. And so in the longer term, we're brainstorming about how to perhaps reshape the sabbatical experience so people can get the benefits of it, which are new research and scholarship experiences, plotting new directions, and so on. Get those benefits without the current level of disruption. All right, no more questions have come in. If questions do occur to you on this topic, I'm the guy, so get in touch with me. I'm very easy to find. So let me wrap things up. First, let me just reiterate that we're extremely pleased that you joined us. You represent yet another outstanding class of incoming faculty. This institution is constantly revitalized for all of my time here by the inflow of talented people bringing new ideas, new techniques, new issues to this campus. So we're very glad that you're here. We also recognize very well that you have arrived at a difficult time, and as I mentioned in my opening remarks, we feel pretty well prepared to do all that we can to protect, if you will, your career trajectories from being mucked up by this viral pandemic. And furthermore, I think our ethos on this campus is we will all get through this together, and you are now a part of that. A couple of other things I wanted to mention. Jay Ackridge, our provost, mentioned that he spent his entire academic career here, and that the public Research One land-grant mission is in his blood. You're going to meet other people who've been at Purdue a long time, maybe through multiple stages of their life. And in a strange sort of way, I'm one of them. 40-some years ago, I was an undergraduate student at Purdue, a first-gen kid from Chicago who came down here to see what college was all about. And I tried to leave. I went to the West Coast for graduate school. I went to Europe for my postdoc. I went to the Soviet Union on a scientific exchange. I spent 9 years as an assistant and associate professor on the East Coast. And somehow I ended up back here as an associate professor in 1997. So although I tried, I apparently did not achieve escape velocity. But having been at a variety of institutions in my academic career, I think I have a perspective that I'd like to convey to you, and that is the public land-grant university is an amazing American invention. There's just nothing like it anywhere else in the world. The idea that with public support, we generate new knowledge across all disciplines. We teach it to young people and as representative a group of young Americans as we can, and we push it out to the world. This is a fantastic burden that we have, a glorious job that we have, and I could not be happier than to end up spending the last 50% of my career deeply embedded in it. So I guess my great hope for you is that you end up, when you're getting old and gray like me, still getting up in the morning and thinking, I can't wait to get to the Purdue campus to do the cool stuff that I do. I can't wait to get to the Purdue campus to interact with the great colleagues that I have. I can't wait to get to the Purdue campus to teach and train and mentor these fantastic, eager young students that I've got. That's what I hope for you. But you're at the start of a long journey, and in some ways I'm envious of you. And I hope that you will let my office, Faculty Affairs, know if there are ways in which we can speed you along that trajectory, help you find opportunities, and help you solve problems. Well, Mark Twain said it's a terrible death to be talked to death, and my guess is if you're still alive at the other end of this thing, you have survived today. So let me just wish you all well, tell everyone to take care, and I look forward to meeting you without this mask on someday. Good day, everyone.